जिम्मेदारी का एहसास हर फ्लाइट पर होता है, हर उड़ान पर होता है, क्योंकि मेरे जहाज में 256 लोग बैठते हैं और वो लोग, हर कोई ये सोचता है कि जो ये साहब आगे बैठे हुए हैं, जो उनका पायलट है या कैप्टन है, वो जो भी फैसला आज लेगा वो सही होगा, और वो जो भी करेगा वो उससे अच्छा हो ही नहीं सकता है टू मेक दिस फ्लाइट सेफर. One more was that once I was flying, we had an in-flight emergency also. One of our passengers had a heart attack. And I remember the cabin crew banging the cockpit door that, Captain, we have a very serious medical situation. So I initiated a diversion to Muscat, I still remember. And then the paramedics and the medics took him away. The only thing is that I feel fortunate to have I did my job, but I saved a life, happened to save a life also. So that is a very rewarding experience.
तो आज के पॉडकास्ट में आप सभी का स्वागत है। तो सबसे पहले मैं अपने गेस्ट से चाहूंगा वो अपने बारे में हमें थोड़ा सा बताएं।
हेलो गेस्ट, मेरा नाम गनी खान है और आई एम अ पायलट विद एयर इंडिया फॉर लास्ट 2 decades. And since childhood, I was not aware of this profession, but thanks to my father's upbringing, he kind of exposed me to things which are not usual, and he inspired me to stay away from the herd and not to pursue the normal professions like medical, engineering, or defense. They were very famous back at that time. So one of my father's senior son got into aviation, which kind of inspired me to join aviation. Otherwise, I am a parent, father of 2. My wife's name is Subuhi. We live in Gurgaon. I am a hobby adventurer, mountaineer, and photographer as well.
Okay. So can you share your journey to become an airline pilot?
Absolutely, Mohit. So it all started when I did my 10+2 in science. And I remember leaving home at the age of 17, if I remember correctly. And my father enrolled me in a aviation club back in Lucknow. And I went to Faizabad. That's a very small town in UP. It had a very small airstrip. And me and my instructor got airborne in a small Zenith CH-2000. That was a single engine airplane back then. And I was thrilled to get airborne, see everything get smaller as you gain height. He did give me some confidence to fly solo back in Faizabad. And I had a lot of questions. I was thrilled as to how an airplane flies. How should I perform at an optimum level to clear all the exams? Like in aviation, you have some practical tests and some theory tests. So I would say that because I was motivated by this new stream of profession opening up, everything was kind of easy. It was not much of a challenge, because whatever comes from within, you will always follow it with passion and complete it until it is done. So that's what I have to talk about it.
Can you describe a typical day in the life of an airline pilot? और कौन-कौन से responsibilities और कौन-कौन से challenges आप face करते हो?
Very nice, Mohit. Very good question. So I fly the Boeing 787-8. That is a long-haul wide-body airliner. So this airplane flies to Europe, US, Africa, Middle East, and Far East. We even fly to Australia. So long-haul flying, you go to the airport around 5 to 6 times in a month. So our flying program is released for a month. And the day, so we are exposed to variable time schedules. Like sometimes you get up 2 in the morning, sometimes you're getting up 10 in the morning. So the most challenging part is to kind of try to program your sleep. So what I do personally is that because I'm a hobby athlete, so I love working out. So I program my workouts so that I get tired and sleep before the flight. Otherwise, life of an airline pilot begins. It has to have a bit of discipline in terms of health. You got to be current with your books, and you got to have a good balanced mind. Like whenever we are inducted in any airline, we go through a psychological test, and the psychologists assess us, and then we are inducted. So, for example, if I have a flight to Washington in the night, I try to get up early in the morning and have a good workout routine, good nutrition, and sleep at least 3 to 4 hours before going to the airport. And on the way to the airport, we have these company issued devices on which we get our mail, in which we get our weather, how is the aeroplane, how are the en route airports. So we go through that briefing. We walk up to the dispatch. So there is an office where we go through the flight papers, again, check the weather, meet the crew, brief them about the flight. And then we pass through something known as customs, then immigration, and board the airplane after the security is done. So once we get to the airplane, so there is a certain way in which you are supposed to function. That is known as the standard operating procedure. And we prepare the airplane for the flight according to that.
Okay. तो आपके कंधों पे काफी जिम्मेदारी भी होगी कि जब आप एयर
जी।
टेक ऑफ करते हो या लैंड करते हो, तो वो
जी।
जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है, जो सेफ्टी
जी।
आपको ध्यान रखना पड़ता है 100 ऑफ
जी।
पैसेंजर्स का, तो वो किस
जी।
तरीके से आप उस प्रेशर को या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को आप हैंडल करते हो?
जी, मोहित, तो मुझे 20 साल हो गए हैं एयर इंडिया में, और तकरीबन 12,000 घंटों का तजुर्बा है। इस पूरे सफर में जिम्मेदारी का एहसास हर फ्लाइट पर होता है, हर उड़ान पर होता है, क्योंकि मेरे जहाज में 256 लोग बैठते हैं, और वो लोग, हर कोई ये सोचता है कि जो ये साहब आगे बैठे हुए हैं, जो उनका पायलट है या कैप्टन है, वो जो भी फैसला आज लेगा वो सही होगा, और वो जो भी करेगा वो उससे अच्छा हो ही नहीं सकता है टू मेक दिस फ्लाइट सेफर. सो दैट इज अ एडेड सेंस ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. कभी कभी जैसे व्हेन वी गेट अ ब्रेक, वी गो बैक टू द कैबिन, एंड आई सी के काफी सारे मुसाफिर बहुत ही चैन की नींद सो रहे हैं, एंड मुझे लगता है कि दिस इज अ ह्यूज सेंस ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बिकॉज दे आर asleep while depending on my knowledge, skill, and experience. Or this actually motivates me more, Mohit, to get better at my profession. So in every flight, the learning process never stops. आप हमेशा अपने को बेहतर बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं. तो ये चीजें हैं. और बाकी, yes, when I see my family also travels with me sometimes on these staff tickets. So I really feel I'm a trainer also. I train pilots, like not a very big position. So I try to train people who can fly my family, because their life is dependent on their experience and skill.
ओके, तो ट्रेनिंग की थोड़ी सी बात कर लेते हैं, ट्रेनिंग और क्वालिफिकेशंस की. तो
जी.
एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हो कि प्रोसीजर क्या होता है ट्रेनिंग का, क्वालिफिकेशंस का?
So first of all, Mohit, we'll start with qualification. So to become a commercial pilot, you have to have a commercial pilot license. So you have to complete your 10+2 with science, and then after which you should be able to clear some theory papers, which are conducted by DGCA. DGCA stands for Directorate General of Civil Aviation. So after you clear the theory papers, then you have to fly for 200 hours. Now, initially you fly with instructors, so they check your skill. और जिस तरह से आप जहाज उड़ा रहे हैं, उस तरह से आपका जहाज में इम्तिहान होता है कि आप उसे क्लियर कर पाते हैं कि नहीं. So there are various phases of tests which you go through to get that license. That license requires 200 hours of flying and around 4 to 5 papers. So these जो papers होते हैं, हमारी theory जो है जहाज उड़ाने की, that is divided into navigation, communication, technical, and regulations. So we have to clear these 4 streams. Uske baad, like aviation right now is booming in Air India. In Air India, or there are so many other airlines as well. It's booming in India actually. So uske baad, then you apply for any airline, and then either on your own expense or sponsored by the airline, you are endorsed to fly a big jet, like what you see at the airports in everyday life. Once you're through with that endorsement, so you fly those airplanes first in something known as a simulator. So simulator gives you a feeling that you are in the real aeroplane. So you practice all the emergency drills till the time you perfect them. You are again checked for it. And then you are released as a first officer on the aircraft, airliner. When you become a first officer, then again you have to go through clearing of these theory papers to obtain ATPL, Airline Transport Pilot License. Once you obtain that license and you have a certain amount of experience, again when you clear certain amount of grades of assessment, then you become a captain. When you become a captain, then you're whole soul responsible for the safety of the flight. And then when you become a captain, after a certain number of hours and given a chance, if you have a good record, then you become a trainer. So when I became a trainer, my job primarily is to train people on the aeroplane and to check them. Yes.
तो आप ट्रैवल काफी करते रहते हो, तो कोई मेमोरेबल, मोस्ट मेमोरेबल या कोई चैलेंजिंग फ्लाइट आपने अभी तक एक्सपीरियंस की हो?
बिल्कुल मोहित, बहुत सी ऐसी यादें हैं, लेकिन आई वुड से आई हैव फ्लोन बोइंग 737 around 6-7 years ago. So once I was taking off from Trivandrum for a Gulf flight, and while taking off, one of the engines, the right engine, I still remember, went into the red band. Like the temperature was very hot and the engine indications went red. And that was a very critical moment in our life, because I'll always remember that that particular occurrence. So we took off and we followed our emergency procedures. We actually, in layman terms, brought the power back on the affected engine and engaged the autopilot. And to my surprise, the engine recovered and we continued the flight all the way to Gulf. But that particular exceedance of the engine, because engine is the heart and soul of the aeroplane, it is giving you thrust to move ahead and fly and everything. And luckily, we landed safely into Gulf. One more was that once I was flying, we had an in-flight emergency also. One of our passengers had a heart attack. And I remember the cabin crew banging the cockpit door that, "Captain, we have a very serious medical situation." So I initiated a diversion to Muscat, I still remember. And then the paramedics and the medics took him away. The only thing is that I feel fortunate to have I did my job, but I saved a life, happened to save a life also. So that is a very rewarding experience. जी.
ओके, तो 3 साल पहले आप फ्लाइंग बीस्ट का आपने सुना होगा, यूट्यूबर एक और पायलट भी रह चुके हैं। तो उनकी पहले 3 साल पहले कंट्रोवर्सी थी जिसमें उन्होंने कहा था कि एयर एशिया के ऊपर थी कि वो सेफ्टी प्रोटोकॉल्स का ध्यान नहीं रखते, लाइक फुल फ्लैप और फ्लैप 3। तो वो उनको फोर्स करते हैं कि आपको फ्लैप 3 ज्यादा से ज्यादा 98% आपको टाइम आपको यूज करना है, उससे क्या होगा, फ्यूल बचेगा। तो समटाइम मोस्ट ऑफ द पायलट दे डोंट यूज फ्लैप 3, maybe due to external factors like environmental or weather, or there are so many factors. तो मैं आपका ओपिनियन जानना चाहता हूँ इसके ऊपर कि आप फुल फ्लैप यूज करते हो या फ्लैप 3, या आप सिचुएशन के हिसाब से काम करते हो?
बिल्कुल, वेरी नाइस क्वेश्चन मोहित। सो फ्लाइट सेफ्टी स्टैंड्स एज द मोस्ट important thing in aviation. First comes flight safety, then comes economy, then comes passenger comfort. Now maybe passenger comfort and economy are at par. So usage of flaps, first of all, what are flaps? So flaps are these devices which slow down the aeroplane to land. Some airfields which are critical, which have shorter runways, no company can force the pilot to select a lower flap setting to save fuel, because they are also intelligent enough to realize that if in case, God forbid, there is an overrun, if you go out of the runway, the amount of money involved in recovering the airplane, repairing it, is much more than the amount of money you save while doing lesser flap landings. So our standard operating procedures have these airports listed where you have to do a full flap land. So nobody can force you on that. So that's my take on it. But yes, the controversy, though I'm honestly not aware about, but as an aviator, I would say flight safety cannot be compromised. Like the company may have to change their rules and regulations, but I cannot, there are so many people trusting me. I cannot let that trust go.
Okay. तो आपने आपके करियर के दौरान एविएशन
जी।
इंडस्ट्री कितनी इवॉल्व हुई है?
अरे मोहित, अमेजिंग। मैंने 20 साल पहले जब एयरबस 310 300 जहाज उड़ाना शुरू किया था, आप सोचिए मोहित कि वी यूज्ड टू फ्लाई फ्रॉम एट द मोस्ट फ्रॉम फ्रॉम बॉम्बे to Gulf, and the other airplane which we had, 747-400, used to go from Bombay to London. And to go to US, you have to land in Europe and then go to US. But technology has evolved so much that we can directly fly from India to US non-stop. So that is the range, how we have increased the range of the aeroplanes and the reliability of the engines, airframe, whole 4 pilot operations have come up. When we fly to US, all these ultra long flights, we have 4 pilots, and we have 2 bunks like behind the cockpit, so 2 pilots are always at controls and 2 pilots are resting, and then we swap. So that is with the range of the aeroplane. A lot has improved on the computation part of it. So earlier aeroplanes were more analog. Remember Mohit, हमारे पहले घड़ियों में सुइयां होती थी, analog सुइयां होती थी. Now it has changed to digital. So airplanes are also now more digitized, and now we have lot of navigation upgrades, like satellites help us to navigate. Earlier we used to mostly navigate on ground-based aids. So then now the airplane which I fly, it is made of carbon fiber, Mohit. So carbon fiber is lighter, so it consumes less fuel. Whereas the airplane which I flew 20 years ago was made of aluminium and titanium and all these things. Yeah.
Okay. तो हाउ डू यू डील विद लॉन्ग हॉल फ्लाइट्स और जेट लैग से आप किस तरीके से आप उस चीज को डील करते हो, प्रोफेशनली
जी।
भी और पर्सनली भी?
जी, Mohit, sleep is a very important part of our life, and long haul flying exposes you to crossing of so many time zones. Like when we fly to US, it's around 11-12 hours difference in time zones. Honestly, when we kind of have a active lifestyle, before the flight have a lighter meal, then you can somehow tame your sleep. But sometimes it is not possible because sleep is not a on-off switch. What I do personally, as I told you earlier, I manage my workout schedules to sleep before the flight. Once you go into the flight, we divide our rest. Once you go back, try not to have coffee before the flight, before the rest. And when you go to the bunk to rest, you can't force sleep onto yourself. Sometimes what I've experienced, Mohit, there is something between fully awake and fully when you're slept. There's something in between. Sometimes I experience that. You're just resting. And after landing at such stations, the most weird thing is, Mohit, कि बाहर जो है वो रोशनी है और आपको नींद आ रही है. तो आप सबसे अच्छा नुस्खा ये है कि उस वक्त आप पर्दे डालिए, ये भूल जाइए कि बाहर रोशनी हो रही है और आराम से सोइए. होता क्या है, पीपल नॉर्मली दे शुड नॉट फॉलो दिस, बट दे ट्राई टू स्ट्रेच द लिमिट्स ऑफ स्लीप, विच इज नॉट गुड फॉर द ह्यूमन बॉडी ऑल्सो. और बाकी best thing is, Mohit, not to think too much about it. Whenever you feel sleepy and if you can rest, please go ahead and rest.
Okay. तो हम जब देखते हैं कि प्लेन उड़ रहा है तो हमें बहुत छोटा दिखाई देता है, बट आपके पर्सपेक्टिव के हिसाब से जब उड़ा रहे हो तो वो एक्सपीरियंस कैसा होता है? वो पर्सपेक्टिव मुझे जानना है.
बहुत जादुई होता है. मेरा फेवरेट, सबसे पसंदीदा जो उड़ाने का लम्हा होता है या वक्त होता है, वो सुबह के वक्त होता है, जब सूरज निकल रहा होता है और आप टेक ऑफ कर रहे होते हैं. हल्की हल्की सूरज की रोशनी होती है और हवाएं भी बहुत स्थिर और काम होती हैं. सो देयर इज नो टर्बुलेंस ऑल्सो. एंड पर्सनली व्हेन यू फ्लाई, मोहित, आप जिस तरह से ऊंचाई पर जाते हैं तो चीजें नीचे जो है ना वो छोटी होती रहती हैं. तो मोहित, ये जितनी भी सरहदें बनाई है ना इंसान ने, ये सारी सरहदें गायब हो जाती हैं और आपको पूरी दुनिया एक सी लगती है, बिना किसी मुल्क, मजहब, पॉलिटिक्स, मतलब हर चीज. मुझे ऐसे देखने में लगता है कि हम लोग हैं तो सब ऊपर से एक ही, लेकिन नीचे उतर के वो सब बाउंड्रीज फिर से आ जाती हैं. तो वो थोड़ा सा, दैट्स अ लिटिल फिलोसॉफिकल व्यू ऑफ इट. और वाइल्ड फ्लाइंग, मोहित, ऐसे नज़ारे देखने को मिलते हैं, खासकर आसमान में ऐसे सितारे, इस तरह के बादल, इस तरह के इंद्रधनुष, जो आप जमीन पे उसका तजुर्बा ले ही नहीं सकते. Also, adding to it, there is one more phenomena known as Aurora's Borealis, Northern Lights. आपने सुना होगा शायद या देखा होगा वीडियोस में. तो when we fly over Greenland, Iceland, US जाने के लिए, तो सर्दियों में we see these huge curtains of lights, which are kind of green in color. और वो पूरे पर्दे जो हैं 15-20 मिनट के लिए आपके सामने रहते हैं. So you feel that you're so fortunate to witness it. And we see a lot of shooting stars also. Yeah.
तो जब भी आप फ्लाइट टेक ऑफ करते हो या लैंड करते हो, जब ऑफ फ्लाइट्स, जब आप किसी पैसेंजर से मिलते हो, तो कोई मजेदार किस्सा अगर आपको हो तो हमारे साथ शेयर करो.
हाँ, that's a interesting question. I may have to really go back in time. In fact, last flight only, I was my cabin supervisor walked into into the cockpit, and she told me that there is a lady who wants to meet you, and she knows you, but I'm not sure that whether you know her or not. So I was surprised. Who is she? In fact, it was last night only. And just adding a little bit of background to it. So my father has served the Central Reserve Police Force for 38 years. And that lady happened to be my father's junior's daughter. So we grew up together when we were back in paramilitary forces. My father was in paramilitary forces. So I came back and I saw her behind, and she was jumping with joy that, because she heard my name, and it's quite an unusual name. So she could relate that name with Air India, and we could meet, and she was very happy to meet me. And Mohit, aviation is such a profession that sometimes when we drive to the airport ना, तो दीवार पे हमेशा कोई ना कोई एयरपोर्ट बाउंड्री में खड़े होके देख रहा होता है जहाज कैसे उड़ता है, कैसे उतर रहा है, कैसे चढ़ रहा है. तो आई ऑलवेज फील गुड के आई एम डूइंग समथिंग व्हिच थ्रिल्स people. And sometimes we get to meet celebrities also. Like I remember seeing Miss Sushmita Sen long back in club class, and who else? Cricketers. Sometimes we fly these national teams for sport events. That is, and most importantly, kids. Children. They ask the most profound questions. So, and they're very happy to visit the flight deck. Of course, they come and have a short glance at it after landing, because in flight it is not allowed now. Yeah, please carry on, Moni.
Okay. अगर मैं आपको कहूँ कि आपको अपनी फ्लाइट पे किसी को इनवाइट करना है, किसी सेलिब्रिटी को या बॉलीवुड एक्टर को, तो आप किसे इनवाइट करोगे?
I think I would love. I'm not too much fascinated by Bollywood, Mohit, but I love to invite a sportsman like Mr. Sachin Tendulkar, maybe. Because he has worked hard from ground zero to where he is now. And I'd like to get some guidance, some tips on how to achieve such huge, success in his life. I think I'll zero in on him only. Yeah.
Okay. मुझे थोड़ा जानना है कल्चरल एस्पेक्ट के बारे में, कि कल्चर और इंटरनेशनल एस्पेक्ट जो होते हैं फ्लाइंग के, स्पेशली व्हेन वर्किंग विद अ डाइवर्स क्रूज और पैसेंजर्स फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड. तो आप अलग अलग कल्चर से कैसे, अलग अलग लैंग्वेजेस से कैसे अडेप्ट करते हैं?
मोहित, आई डोंट नो हाउ मेनी लैंग्वेजेस डू वी स्पीक. इस दुनिया में कितनी जबानें हैं, लेकिन इफ यू बिगिन योर फ्लाइट विद अ काम माइंड एंड अ स्माइल ऑन योर फेस, मुस्कुराहट और हंसी और खुशी की सिर्फ एक जबान होती. सो आई ट्राई टू ग्रीट माई क्रू with a smiley face, and then brief them about the flight. I also feel that as a captain, you are leading a team, and if you try to kind of be dominant, अगर आप उन पे थोड़ा ऊंची आवाज से बोल रहे हैं, या तो मेरे ख्याल से that is not acceptable, because then they will not approach you. They will be apprehensive कि मैं इनसे ये बोलूं कि ना बोलूं. तो एक मुस्कुराहट, smile and silence, that if you have in your personality, you can deal with any person from any culture. I think everybody smiles in the same language.
जी. तो थोड़ा टेक्निकल एस्पेक्ट्स की तरफ जाते हैं.
जी.
तो कौन कौन से सेफ्टी प्रोटोकॉल्स का ध्यान रखते हो जब भी टेक ऑफ करना होता है, जब भी लैंड करना होता है?
Ji. First of all, I always think about the security protocol like unlawful interference, hijack. So our cockpit door is bulletproof and it is always locked. And there is a secret code which we give to the cabin supervisor, which if she mentions, then I get to know that the airplane is under trouble from any unlawful person. Takeoff, जो है, that is more critical than landing, because takeoff में you're accelerating to a very high speed, and sometimes you have to take a split decision. So there is a certain speed beyond which the airplane can be stopped on the runway. And there is a certain speed after which you have to continue. Even with a burning engine, you have to go ahead and get airborne. So I would say takeoff is more critical. Safety aspect during takeoff is the correct programming of the computer regarding the weight of the aeroplane, thrust of the engine, configuration of the aeroplane, that you should be having the correct flap setting, जैसे हम पहले बात कर रहे थे. और लैंडिंग के वक्त जो है, winds matter a lot. जैसे sometimes I remember landing into Narita, Japan, or I would say the other day we were taking off out of Copenhagen. Winds and weather plays an amazing role in aviation. So crosswind landings, gusty conditions, but landing is still less critical, but it requires a higher degree of skill. So your hand-eye coordination has to be, I would say, apt for the job.
Okay.
जी.
So if you have the opportunity to design your own aircraft
जी.
with any features or any
जी.
amenities, तो उसमें क्या क्या चीज आप इंक्लूड करोगे और उसको नाम क्या दोगे आप?
बिल्कुल. So I would love to save energy. My carbon footprint as a human being is huge because I fly aeroplanes, so I don't know how much my carbon footprint is like infinite. I would love to be a part of a solar project in which my airplane is solar. There are some solar airplanes, but they don't carry as much passengers as we do in these conventional airplanes. My dream airplane has to have solar cells so that we don't use any fuel, and it should be able to attain highest altitude possible, for good efficiency. And my dream airplane should have top of the notch avionics. So avionics means aviation electronics. Remember, we used to, back 20 years ago, we used to have phones which we used to dial numbers at. Now everything is digitized. So now we have touch screens. Some some general aviation airplanes have touch screens on the overhead panel. So I'd love to have that kind of a cockpit experience.
Okay.
जी.
तो जितने मेरे listeners हैं who want to
जी.
pursue in the career of aviation, तो
जी.
आपकी क्या advice होगी उन लोगों के लिए?
This is the best time to get into aviation because the amount of orders we have from Airbus and Boeing, from the airlines which we have in India, is huge. We are a country of 140 billion people. So if an aviation in India still is serving maybe 10 to 12%, so there is huge opportunities for youngsters who are planning to be aviators. And this is a very, till date, I can say that it's a very rewarding career. First of all, you don't have to deal with office politics. I'll be very open about it. You deal with machines. Machines don't, ditch you. They are never good or bad. They only function in one certain way. And you get to see the world. And fortunately, you make enough money to have a comfortable living. And you can sponsor somebody's education, food, shelter. You can help the poor. And you can have very interesting hobbies. So all the, I would say, offbeat hobbies I have is because of aviation, because it exposed me to so many cultures and people. So I could just imbibe it in my own psychology to kind of live life according to that. So that happened to me when I flew to Canada. So Canada inspired me the most. So I got into kayaking. Then I went kayaking in Antarctica around 13 years ago. Recently, I have climbed Mont Blanc, which is the second highest mountain in Europe. So all this comes from aviation, personally. Yes.
Okay. I often wonder what pilots do eat during long flights. जब भी long flights होती हैं, तो pilots खाते क्या? तो बता सकते हो insider tips या कुछ
हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल। सो हमारे जो खाने होते हैं, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल एक हमारे यहाँ कानून होता है कि जो कैप्टन और फर्स्ट ऑफिसर हैं वो दोनों अलग तरह का खाना ऑर्डर करते हैं टू प्रिवेंट फूड पॉइजनिंग। हाँ अलग अलग, ही विल हैव समथिंग एल्स, आई विल हैव समथिंग एल्स। और हम लोग एक वक्त पे खाना नहीं खाते हैं, एक इंसान खाना खाता है, दूसरा इंसान टेक केयर ऑफ द एरोप्लेन बेसिकली। और वी आर सर्व विथ लाइट मील्स एंड वी आर एडवाइज टू हैव लेस कैफीन एंड every 45 minutes to 1 hour we are encouraged कि आप थोड़ा खड़े होके stretch कर लो ताकि the blood circulation is good enough. Personally, I'd love to have lot of salads, fruits and nuts in my diet, and I try to avoid very heavy carb meals before the flight. Ji. And of course,
Okay.
very important, Mohit, one very important point is that before every flight, we are tested for our alcohol intake. So it has to be 0 before the flight. तभी आप जहाज में जा सकते हैं, उसके बिना आप जहाज में नहीं जा सकते। तो that is one very good thing कि you are totally set for the flight. जी।
Okay. So how do you maintain the balance between your personal life and professional life?
मोहित मैं बताऊं, बिकॉज ऑफ लॉन्ग हॉल फ्लाइंग ना, इट्स एन अमेजिंग वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस। क्योंकि जितने टाइम जोन हम लोग क्रॉस करके वापस आते हैं दिल्ली, तो हमें उतना ही रेस्ट मिलता है। जैसे आप वॉशिंगटन से वापस आइए तो आपको 5 दिन मिलते हैं, नोबडी कैन कॉल यू, नोबडी कैन डिस्टर्ब यू, डिस्ट्रैक्ट यू, कॉल यू टू द ऑफिस। 4-5 days you are free, so you have enough time to spend with your kids. You can go out on your on a trip, but that only happens when you have recovered from your jet lag. That is a very important aspect of it. Personally, I really look up to aviators who fly for airlines like Indigo, SpiceJet, basically operate short haul aeroplanes, क्योंकि वो लोग दिन में 4 लैंडिंग करते हैं और हफ्ते में 5 बार करते हैं। It is very fatiguing to do that. And I don't know, I hope so कि regulatory authorities realize and they kind of ease up on the regulations ताकि उनको ज़्यादा rest करने को मिले. But in long haul flying, there is an amazing work-life balance. I get to do everything what I like, spend good time with my family, maintain my hobbies, and just purely enjoy and have a lot of free time as well.
Okay. तो ऑफ फ्लाइट्स कोई आपको ऐसा पैसेंजर मिला हो जिसने कुछ अजीबोगरीब आपसे रिक्वेस्ट, अजीबोगरीब मतलब
बहुत ही, एक छोटा बच्चा मुझे मिला था आज से 5-6 साल पहले, और वो कॉकपिट में आए लैंडिंग के बाद। तो हमारा जो कंप्यूटर होता है, हर कंप्यूटर के ऊपर ABCD तो लिखा ही होता है। तो मुझे अभी भी याद है उन्होंने जिस तरह से मेरे से बोला कि कैप्टन आपके कंप्यूटर में तो ABCD लिखा हुई है, तो बहुत आसान है, A फॉर एप्पल, B फॉर बॉल, ऐसे करके। मैंने बोला हाँ भाई, ये आपने बिल्कुल सही बात बोली है कि ये बहुत आसान है। तो मी एंड माय फर्स्ट ऑफिसर वी वर लाफिंग आवर हार्ट्स आउट। तो सबसे अच्छे सवाल, भोले सवाल, और द पीपल हु आर मोस्ट फुल ऑफ पैशन आर चिल्ड्रन। सो आई लव मेकिंग देम विजिट द फ्लाइट डेक आफ्टर लैंडिंग।
ओके, तो बिफोर एंडिंग द पॉडकास्ट कोई आखिरी एडवाइस हमारे लिसनर्स के लिए?
जो आपका दिल कहे वो करिए, क्योंकि अगर आप किसी और की जिंदगी जिएंगे ना तो आप मेरे ख्याल से थक जाएंगे। लेकिन अगर आप अपने दिल की सुनेंगे और उसको पूरी तरह से अपने ख्वाबों को पूरे करने की कोशिश करेंगे, तो उससे जो आपको नतीजा मिलेगा, उससे आप निर्वाणा आपको मिल जाएगा। यू विल बी कंटेंट फॉर लाइफ। फॉलो योर हार्ट, दैट्स इट।